Hello and welcome to Nirmal Bang, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hirol Dadia. We have with us Sunil Mehta, Chief Executive at IBA, joining in. Welcome to the show, Sunil, and always a pleasure to speak to you and get great insights. We've spoken earlier as well, Sunil, with regards to how the first wave had impacted the banking system and the financial system as a whole. Now that we have an impact of the second wave as well, what would your thoughts be on the impact?
Well, Hiren, the impact of first wave was really severe, but thanks to the support which has been given by the regulator as well as by the government, that a lot of hand-holding could happen. MSMEs were given the emergency line of credit that was guaranteed by the government of India. So that has got an allocation of 3 lakh crore, which was sanctioned and disbursed. So that has provided great relief to the MSME segment, especially because they could sustain the impact of the COVID first phase and now the second phase also. That scheme got customized to the requirement of the masses in the course. Like initially, it was for smaller loans. Then the EC list 2 came, which was for even a larger segment. Then for 3 came, which hospitality sector and the aviation sector was also included. And limits were also enhanced from 20% to 40%. So that has given a good hold holding. Secondly, RBI, by providing a few special dispensations like a moratorium during the first phase, secondly, providing the restructuring window that was made available for December 2000 up to December 2020. So that has really helped all sectors of economy to sustain during these very difficult and challenging time. I think entire world has done it, but India has done it better than the other countries because I'm a member of International Banking Federation, and we have exchanged the views, and everybody applauded the steps taken by the Indian regulator RBI as well as the government in meeting of these challenges during this pandemic time. So that is reflected now. First wave of COVID wave impact is already reflected in the balance sheet, which has been
Right.
published by most of the banks. And I think you are very well aware that profitability levels of the banks have gone up, and especially because of the lower cost of the funds and lower slippages also, mainly because of the these type of supports available from the regulator as well as from the government. So both of them have really helped in sustaining the health of the financial system during this time. So that is regarding wave one, and the results up to March are already out, and it's in the public domain. Our gross NPA levels are below 7.5, which is below even the level of March 2020. So it means our gross NPA levels have not gone up. The net NPA levels have marginally gone up from 2.1 to 2.4, but even that is a thing which is much within the control. So we do not find any major impact of this pandemic onto the financial health of the financial system during this period. That has been well taken care of by the regulatory measures and the government. And going forward, the second wave, yes, of course, second wave was totally unexpected. Nobody was prepared for it, and it started erupting during the second week of April. But we must appreciate the resilience of our country, that everybody came forward. The government has came forward with creating special measures for supply of oxygens, for creating the infrastructure. Entire world has supported us to fight this pandemic, and we got support from the all the countries. And within a short span of time, maybe it started in the second week of April, and by the end of June, I think things were within the control, and a lot of damage could be controlled. By that time, the graph of increasing COVID cases got reduced. But to come out to face these challenges also, the regulator has come forward. Maybe on 5th May, the RBI governor came out and announced that, okay, to support the second wave, so restructuring window was made available earlier for cases up to 25 crore. So that constitutes roughly 80 to 85% of the number of borrowers in the country. That's a larger chunk as in terms of the numbers. Then the RBI came out with a forbearance for 50 crore. So up to 50 crore borrowers were also providing that relief. And then the government has come out recently. I think you must have seen the announcements made by the finance minister also about the COVID related special packages that they have come forward. that 60,000 crore of the packages for other sectors, the 50,000 crore of the package for medical infrastructure. So this all will facilitate not only creation of medical infrastructure, because whenever you create a medical infrastructure, you provide employment also to the people, you provide economic growth. So all these things have really played very nicely, and the government and the regulator together, by providing relief to vulnerable sections also, maybe in the form of direct benefit transfer, because under PMJDY 500 rupees individual credits were made to the women Jan Dhan accounts also. Senior citizens were also provided relief, farmers were also provided relief. So all, and the MNREGA, the number of allocation was made. So all these things has supported right from last mile to the top notch of the industry, and the expert committee under RBI was created to take care for the resolutions. So that has also provided relief. So in a way, the country has managed it quite well, the two phases. And hopefully, if we are able to contain this momentum, and maybe the third wave do not impact, then I hope within this year we will be able to back to normalcy. So that's let's hope positive about it.
Absolutely. I think positivity is something that will count. However, with that, when I was reading on the financial conditions index, that has taken a big knock in the first quarter this year to 59.1 from a 72.5 in the previous quarter. That's the fourth quarter of FY21. What do you make of this?
I think it's a clearly written on the wall. Fourth quarter of the 2021, by that time, I think entire economy was almost back to the normalcy.
Mhm.
So you are comparing an index for the last quarter of the 2021, and last quarter, by third quarter onward, the economy started bouncing back. Almost many of the industries, it came almost to the normalcy, 80 to 19% of their normal activity, and everybody was very bullish and positive about it, because nobody thought that second wave will come. So if you compare it with quarter four, it will be altogether a different scenario, because first quarter of this year, really there was a second wave, and it was as severe as the first quarter of 2020. So it can be compared with the first quarter of 2020 and not with the last quarter of 2014. But even if you consider it on a standalone basis, 59% is considered to be a optimistic index. Anything above 50 is considered to be optimistic, because there was an impact, but positivity is still there into the environment, and people think that yes, we will be able to come out of it.
Right. And with all of this, going ahead, do you think there is a risk of slippages, especially in the retail and the MSME portfolios, taking into consideration the restructuring, the moratoriums that have been provided so far?
So I think you answered my question yourself. RBI window, which I said you in the beginning about the measures, and now on 5th May, they have come out with a policy. Governor has announced for 25 crore, and then again for 50 crore. So 50 crore will take care of all the retail borrowers. Our retail borrowers, basically, all those who borrow less than 5 crore comes in that category, most of them. So that can be taken care of by the three measures. Like those who are into MSME, they will have a sustenance mainly because of the emergency line of credit. Those who are into the retail segment, they will have a support in the form of the restructuring. And if you see the overall scenario, although these supports were provided by the government, these supports were provided by the regulator, what was the level restricting that has happened. Even last full financial year, the total number of cases which has gone for restructuring is roughly 8 lakh, and the amount involved was 1,35,000 crore. So 1,35,000 crore, if you see in the number of total, it is just 1% of the total credit. For total credit is 127 lakh crores, and it's just 1.3 lakh crore was got restructured. And even in this, for the larger segment, the impact is not that late. Only very few, 8 to 10 cases have come for restructuring to the expert committee. So what does it indicate? It means, it simply indicates that yes, it has impacted the industry, but it has not impacted to the extent that it will destabilize the economic processes. Even the restructuring window was made available to the people, but most of the people think that why postpone your thing if they have a capacity, especially those who are having the regular source of income, like a salaried people, or those who are having earning from the professions and they could sustain, or those who are having adequate saving. So they have preferred to pay instead of taking the moratorium and again going forward. So in my opinion is, yes, even if we consider that those who avail the restructuring are stressed out, the proportion is just 1% of the outstanding credit. So
Correct.
it is, even if the 25% of it slips into NPA, it will not have a major impact on the Indian banking system. That is one aspect of it. And secondly, a large portion which is covered by the government guarantee, that is emergency line of credit. Since it enjoys the government guarantee, when it slips, the government stands by there to take care of it. So ultimately, bankers will not be losing much out of it.
Right.
So that way, I think we are a bit insulated by these government and measures and the regulatory provisions.
Right. So is it right to say that the asset quality in terms of FY22 will be better than what we've seen in FY21?
Well, it is too early to predict because we have just completed one quarter. We don't know about how the pandemic pan out, whether the second or third wave or whatsoever impacts, because nobody can be sure about it. But if we presume and take an assumption that there will not be any further COVID impact in the country, this can be even better.
Right. With all of this, Sunil, what's your view with regards to where the overall credit environment is concerned? Because the bank credit to the private corporate sector declined for a second consecutive year in FY21. What would this mean for the economy as well as the banking system as a whole?
Well, Hiren, you will agree. It is a statistics, and statistics sometimes, it deceives more. It doesn't give you the right picture. Corporate credit has gone down by 1.7% down. I know, I totally agree with you, but it is in a proportion to the overall credit. In fact, what has happened is there has been a greater growth into the MSME segment, there has been a greater growth in the retail segment, and the corporate credit has not grown. So when overall kitty grows, but the corporate credit do not grow into that proportion, in proportionate term, you will treat it as a deceleration. In numerical terms, if I can explain, out of a 100 crore portfolio, if corporate credit was 25, tomorrow the portfolio has grown to 200 crore, and out of which the corporate credit has grown from 25 to 30, but others have grown from 50 to 80. So that is proportionately, you will see that there is a decrease in the proportion of corporate credit. So statistically, this has happened. Then there have been 2-3 other factors also. A lot of resolutions have come forward, have happened during this period. So all those assets which were there in the books of the bank were constituting a part of the corporate credit. Many of them got resolved during this period. To name the few, you see the first list of the IBC. What was the total amount involved? 3 lakh crore. And many of those assets which were in the books of the bank could find a resolution or are paid off during this period. Once these assets are paid off, the corporate book is bound to come down, because ultimately the assets are resolved. Even if at a 50%, the 50% haircut banks have taken, but to that extent, the corporate book will also come down. So it is not that there is a deceleration in corporate credit. It was basically because of the two major impact. One was the growth of retail and MSME was higher, maybe because of the government support provided in the form of emergency line of credit, maybe greater focus of the banks on the retail credit. So these sectors have grown better than the corporate credit. One factor. Second factor is resolution of the stress assets that has reduced the corporate book of the banks. And the third important factor is most of the corporates have learned a lesson in a harder way. Many of them have gone to the insolvency. Many of them have suffered the setback. So most of them have become prudent. They have started relying more on instruments other than the debt. Without naming them, the largest corporates of the country have gone for deleveraging their balance sheet. They have gone for mobilizing more capital. Some of the big organizations have mobilized capital. So the moment they deleverage, the debt is shifted, reduced, and the equity is increased. Of course, the corporate book is going to come down. So all these factors, you cannot look at from a negative point of view. I think there have been a positive point, although corporate book has not grown to the extent of MSME and retail, but it's a positive sign because many of the corporates have deleveraged themselves. resolutions have come forward which have reduced the corporate book. And the third important factor is that the growth of retail and MSME has taken a lion's share of the incremental credit.
Right. So with all of this, now that we're talking of the corporate side, do you think the asset quality on the corporate side needs to be monitored from here on?
As regards monitoring of assets, I think it's right from retail to corporate, everything need to be monitored by the banking system. That is important. But I think the 2-3 major changes which the government has brought out, one was this IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. That has given a very signaling effect on the entire corporate culture and the credit discipline. The corporate, now every corporate understands that if they do not conform to the financial discipline, if they do not adhere to it, tomorrow they can lose the entire empire. It can go to some different hands. It can change hands. So this particular has given a very strong signaling effect, which has motivated many of the corporates to be greaterly financial disciplined. Another thing is relying more on equity, and these things have really paved the ways for improving. As regards monitoring, I think now the self-monitoring is more than the banks monitoring. The corporate themselves are monitoring their own financial discipline so that they do not fall into any of these categories of slipping into NPA, then going to the IBCs and suffering all this risk. So I think they have started self-monitoring better. But of course, monitoring is the requirement for all the sectors of the banking, and bankers need to do it.
Right. And what would your view be with regards to where the bad bank is concerned? Because I think it's been a very long time that it has been under consideration now.
Yes, this proposal was given by Indian Bank Association, and Honorable Finance Minister has accepted it and announced it into the budget. This is a very good instrument for resolution of the legacy stress assets. There have been assets which were under NPA for last 4 years, 5 years. Sufficient provisions have already been made, and Finance Minister has already announced it in the budget. The advantage is, I'm just quoting you with an example, and you can very well understand. If one particular house is owned by 20 owners differently, and those 20 owners, and now say everybody will try to maintain only his or her portion of the house. Whenever they have to sell, any buyer will have to consult the 20 owners of that property. And then one owner will say, I want to sell immediately for cash. Somebody will say, I need a higher price. I can wait for some more time. Third one will say, I don't want to sell at all. So it will be very difficult for any buyer of the property to buy that house. It will not be, and it will be very difficult to reach to a common consensus. That is one aspect of it. That means debt aggregation. Now the bad bank, what if it will do? It will aggregate the debt of all the 20 lenders which are there into the system. 20, I'm just quoting for example. It can be 5, it can be 8, it can be 20. So it will provide the advantage of, so that one person can take decision for all the 20. That is one thing. Now, so long as there were 20 owners, somebody was maintaining house properly, somebody was maintaining their portion, was not maintaining their portion, somebody was not having enough resources to maintain it. But now, since it will be a common thing, one owner is there and they know that they have to create the value and then they can sell it to the market. So they will go for repair and renovation of the house. They will make it presentable and marketable, and then they can attract the buyers also. They can go to the 99acres.com, magicbrick.com. There are a lot of portals, because there is a single seller, so they can go to the market, they can find a right suitors, they can refurbish the asset, and it can find an easy buyer. So there is, in a very simple term, this is the role of a bad bank: aggregation of a debt, maintaining and refurbishing of the assets, and finding a right buyer which will optimize the value. So it will unlock the value of the which is lying already in these stress assets, and many of them has already been 100% provided for. So the first list which has been identified, the bad debts, that is a 100% provided for list. So whatsoever rate you sell it, like if you 100% provided for, even if you sell it at 20%, that 20% will straight away come to your profit and loss account. So this will definitely help the major banks in reducing their gross NPS. It will help them in reducing their net NPS. it will help them in improving their capitals, because this will come back in the form of profits into their balance sheet. So ultimately, this is going to be a very good enabler for the resolution of the legacy assets, and I think it's a very good step in the right direction, and IBA feel proud to be associated with it.
Right. And overall, the RBI has been thinking of different ways to open up universal banking space also as well, other than licensing. While large NBFCs becoming banks is acceptable to most, there has been large criticism of allowing corporates as bank, with bank licenses. What are your thoughts on the same?
Well, it's all depend upon how do you address the impact of corporate governance. It's not that private sector is totally irresponsible, they will not be able to, or corporate sector can. So long as the regulator checks and balances are built up into any corporate balances, like no single entity is able to take the system for a ride and take the advantage and for their own fold. And if they work just professionally for the larger interest of the ecosystem as well as for providing, I don't find any risk into it. And so far as my understanding goes, Reserve Bank is now, our Indian regulator is much stronger than the regulators abroad. And that is evident from this fact that not even a single major bank has been allowed to get insolvent. Every bank was provided support at the right time. Their management was changed. I'll not name the bank, but recently it has happened with some large sector, private sector bank. They have brought in the public sector bank to support it. They have brought in the new management team to support it.
Correct.
And the public confidence in the banking system was retained. So I think the RBI is mindful of it. If they take a call of permitting the corporate banks, they will have adequate checks and balances that yes, these corporates act ethically, because banking system is a institution of public trust, and anybody operating this system, managing this system, so long as they keep the public trust and there are adequate checks and balances, I don't believe any ownership will make any difference.
Right. Very rightly pointed out, Sunil. And with this, what's your view with regards to consolidation and privatization of government banks?
Like, consolidation was the need of the hour. It's not something new. If you see in 1991, this was talked about when the economy reform started, and Narasimhan committee report, and subsequently. You see, in our country, we have large banks. We call the largest bank is our SBI and Bharatna. Still, if you see our ranking of our banking system in the world hierarchy, only one bank appears in the list of first 100. What does it mean? We need to increase the size of the balance sheet. We need to increase the size of the bank so that they can support the large size of infrastructure project. They can support the large size of corporate funding. So increasing size of, and just relying on one bank is not enough. You need more players into the market, large size players. And this is a step in right direction, that consolidation has provided that platform. Now you have 5 to 6 major banks which are bigger in size. Suppose there is a 10,000 crore, so two banks can join together and can lend it. So the same 10,000 crore which project, which earlier used to be funded by 20 banks, now it can be funded at least by 5 banks. Okay. So that difference has come. So that gel well with the original hypothesis I gave you. If there are 20 owners of a house, in case of it there are 5, at least the resolution is still easier.
Correct.
So increasing the size of the bank was possible only through consolidation. So it was a step in the right direction. Right. So long as privatization is concerned, yes, it's a move that has been taken. Government is testing the water and see what value they are able to create with it, and it can be a messaging also for the entire ecosystem. But if we are able to, like, public sector in India need to exist. Correct. Because in a country like ours, where there's such a vast area, large population. And awareness levels are low, public sector need to exist. But you don't need a multiple banks. If the numbers are reduced, it doesn't affect the system.
Correct. Right. And very lastly, Sunil, with regards to where the policy makers are concerned, now the pace of normalization of the ultra accommodative policies, what do you think will be the RBI stance on interest rates from here on? Because there is an expectation somewhere that there could be inflationary pressures, which will force the hands of the authorities despite their forward guidance of extended accommodation. So do you think there will be further rate cuts, or do you think slowly, steadily, we will see rate increases that could start happening in calendar year 21 itself?
You see, the adverse condition requires bold steps, and that's what the RBI is doing.
Correct.
They have given like despite all the economic analysis, despite all the views, they took a firm stand that RBI is going to provide a support for growth of the economy.
Correct.
Nothing is more important than providing a fillip to the economy right now, because a subdued or depressed market sentiments will never help the country. You need a positive stand, and which the RBI has taken. They have provided a economic stand. They are keeping the cost of borrowing low for the government also, because government borrowing is also funded by the public money. Because ultimately whatsoever interest the government pays on their bonds, on their debts, that comes from the taxpayers' money. So if they reduce the cost of the government borrowing, it is indirectly helping the people of India, because ultimately it is the taxpayer money which will go for a repayment in terms of the bonds, in terms of the wear. So I think they are taking a very right and bold step in this direction to keep the prices low. And I think yes, but there are market pressures. Sometimes, like a recent past, we have seen that bond yields slightly has gone up. But then when you are fighting against the cyclone, you may have to bend out a little, but so long as you are able to stand, that is important. And I think RBI is taking a right step, and interest rate scenario may not be very alarming for the simple reason our deposit growth is to the tune of 11.7%, and our credit growth was in the range of 5.7%. So that's a adequate surplus liquidity available in the banking system. There is adequate liquidity being provided by the RBI also in the terms of TLTROs. I think so many tranches of TLTROs have been announced at so 4% if the funds are available to the banking system for onward lending, the cost of borrowing for the private entities will come down. So all these things will support keeping the interest rate in a lower trajectory, and maybe difficult times will pose challenges, but the system is fighting for it, and I think this is the right move.
Absolutely. And I think the RBI has been acting really in advance since the time COVID has started, which is in the interest of the public as well. Thank you, Sunil, so much for joining us on the show. Always a pleasure to speak to you and get your thoughts, great insights. Thank you. Stay safe and speak to you soon again.
Thank you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.